Hello everybody. In the previous video, the Shen interview, I talked about what might happen, possible directions, and how close I was to getting things right. In this video, I'm going to continue that conversation, but we're going to talk about the most likely thing to happen. What is most likely for Bethesda to do next? Now, we're talking about planets here again. Randomly spawning bases, dynamic content basically. Now, this may not seem exciting to players who don't really understand, the implications here, but it's very exciting to me as a modder because it means we can have random encounters of our own design inserted into the game. I often laugh and joke about bug planets and Star Wars and Star Trek, but that's literally what I'm talking about. You could do that kind of thing. I'd probably stick to the game lore, but anybody that has a fascination of a Final Fantasy or anything like that could just insert their own world there, go there and enjoy their Final Fantasy life. So let's get into it, shall we, and just talk about it. Now, the most likely thing in my book is they pre-generated the worlds, as in they're generated randomly, but before the game is released. And typically I would expect it to be a sphere, and given a size, and then they say, right, this one here has X amount of tiles on it, that one has Y amount of tiles on it, that one has Z amount of tiles on it, and each part of that sphere has a number which corresponds to a location a tile can be attached. So when they're generating a planet, they'll go, give me a medium sphere with 19 tiles taken from the rocky tile set, please. Random, done, right? Then it goes to the next list and it says, what kind of vegetation we have in. I think trees. Okay, list 6, bang, poof, trees are added to the world, and that happens as you enter the system, if it's generated in real time or pre-generated before the game is released. Now, if it's done as you enter the system and you go back to that system in a second or third game, it will be different again. So it won't ever change. Well, it won't stay the same. It'll change constantly. If it stays the same, that means it's pre-generated. It means they might have talked about various Daggerfall systems and whatnot, but they pre-generated it using the Daggerfall system and then kept what they generated. So, it kind of gets away from the No Man's Sky effects. But with Bethesda, though, once you've seen a planet or seen a cave or seen what's in a cave, it tends to stay. They lock it down at that for that particular game. Now, if we've got our planet and we've gone into a system and we've thought to ourselves, yeah, this is a round planet, it's got 19 tiles attached, it's rocky and it's got trees. We're going to make sure 5 of those tiles are base tiles that we can add bases to for missions. So they will be planted amongst them, randomly seeded around the planet. Now, when they go to, say, a mission, oh yeah, it's on that round planet with 19 tiles. Yeah, so we got 5 base things on that. So let's add 5 parrot bases to it as soon as the player goes there and make it a parrot planet, not a bug planet. So then you go there, right, and you walk into the one of the bases, and there's a level list for all the spawn points, which determines what kind of enemy is loaded into that level when you walk in. That is normal, Elder Scrolls, Fallout systems for when you enter locations. That's exactly the same as we've seen in all other games, right? So you get that point where you're loading a level list. Modders know what to do with level lists. They know if you edit the same level list, it's going to be incompatible, 2 mods won't work. But it's the same issue we've always had. Now, if you imagine these level lists could be changed or attached to something, like a new system or a new outpost, and that outpost can be inserted into the thing, then one of those 5 bases could be your outpost spawned on the planet. So you could find that this pre-built planet with its base locations reads a list of outposts it's allowed to use, adds it to the planet. You add yours to that list, and yours is potentially one of the ones added to that planet. You might even find you've got certain terrain requirements, like this outpost can only be placed on rocky terrain. This one has to be in tropical terrain, that kind of thing. Now, the safest way, the most compatible way of doing this is to have like a folder or a list, as they do in the editor, and you just add an ID, a form ID, that's an item, could be a door, a base, anything, to that list. Rather than have literally a written list which has to be edited, you actually have a folder full of individual files, and each file represents a base or an item that can be spawned on that world. So when you're making your list, instead of having a level list, which is basically these items dragged into a list, it reads the folder and goes, right, okay, I want rocky terrain. Where's the rocky terrain folder? There it is. All right, these are all the things I can choose for that. Okay, we'll spawn all that. And these are the rocky terrain bases, so I'll put them in. So you copy the files across, and then they would, literally just use that list you provided, that folder full of files, to make the planet. If they go that route, if that's what they've actually done, then you could make new lists. You could drag and drop the bits you wanted from any list you like into your list, and then add it to a planet of your choosing. And you'd get away from the level list problem, the way the level lists work, because that creates a problem. It's not the best idea Bethesda's had in implementation. But it gets away from that problem there, and it gets into a situation where folders, if someone edits the same folder you do, as long as they don't remove anything or change anything in it and just add their own stuff to the folder, then potentially 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mods can all edit the same thing, add their own stuff, and you could just run the lot, which would be a first, right? Because generally, says in Bethesda, if you try to edit the same thing as another mod, it's just not possible, right? It goes out the window quickly. It creates conflicts, so people start making patches and bash patching and merging and stuff, and then you get, I've been trying to make my game run stably for 6 months and I've failed. Oh, I've got a really stable game. It only took me 6 weeks to do. And I'm thinking, yeah, right, idiot. Seriously, that's what I think when people do that. I know to mod, I know the system works. I use a Bethesda system. I don't have any of them problems. Simple as that, right? They do. Draw your own conclusion. But if they did it that way, where you drag and drop a file, say let's call it a Skyrim, let's put it in Skyrim context, right? You've got a folder listed as Solitude, and you go, right, Mages Guild, boop, Fighters Guild, boop, Palace, boop, Shops, boop, People, boop. And then you think, well, that's the list for Solitude. Generate, bang, there it goes. Then someone comes along and goes, Darth Vader needs a house in that Solitude. Bing, bong, generate, poof, there's Darth Vader's house right there, right? And then somebody says, but Yoda's got to have one too, so he makes a different mod. Yoda's house, poof, generate, poof, Darth Vader and Yoda living next door to each other. Right? 2 mods edit in the same world space without any of the problems. Without any of the problems. That is kind of what I'm hoping they're going to do in Starfield. I'm not saying it's likely. They're probably likely to stay with their old system. But if they did it that way, and they have done it that way with weapons, armour, NPCs, everything else, it's just this level list going back to Morrowind days and probably before is still hanging around. If they think, bollocks to that, let's get rid of that, let's just go with the system we use for armour and weapons and stuff, then potentially, right, if the creation kit engine has been updated like I hope it has, then generating worlds will be much easier, either before or after the game is launched, maybe after the beginning of every game or as you enter a system. Mods will be well, I'm not even going to say it because you don't like swearing on here, but easy. You say, like, you go to a planet, use the same system or same example I use for Solitude, right? Trees, yep. Mining bases, yep. Pirate bases, yep. Blah blah, yep. Right, chances of each one spawning 20%. This is what the level list works like, but using a folder this time, right? Go for it, right? And then bang, you got 20% chance of a pirate base means you might not get a pirate base on that planet. On the next one, you might get 5. It's just the way it works. It's percentages. But I'm kind of hoping that's what they do. If they do work it that way, yeah, it's going to be good. But most likely, they're going to generate the wells beforehand and then populate them as you enter the system. That's what I'm thinking. And if they do it that way, then most of the worlds will be static, won't be changeable, but what appears on them will be dynamic and will be you'll be able to mix and match on the fly, right? It'll bring a whole new dimension to modding worlds for all of us. Like I said in the previous video, we'll all be Slartybartfast creating worlds, if that's what they actually do. Now, regarding the bases, I said in previous videos, I mean, going back a couple of videos now, right, that they could just change what's behind a door on an outpost. So you plant down the outpost, the door leads to a pirate base one day, next day it leads to a merchant space, next time it's a settlement. Basically, the external stays the same, the internal changes. They could still do that. They might still do that. I mean, all you have to do is stick the base behind a door, and then bang, anything behind the door could be randomly changed at a moment's notice. You could even change, right, okay, attack the pirates and wipe them out. You wipe them out, and next time you go back, settlers have taken over the base. It'd be easy, just swap the door, you know? Easy peasy. But I do think it's most likely pre-generated worlds. You know, they kind of like, they generate them on the fly because it's the easiest way of doing it, but they save their original generated worlds off and then dynamically add content to that. That's what I'm thinking is most likely and makes the most sense. And I just hope that some of the things I've explained in this video, like using a folder instead of a mod list, or not a mod list, a level list, right, is the way they go. Because if they do it the same way as they do folders for weapons and stuff like that, many of the incompatibilities we've seen so far stop. They just stop being a thing. They're gone. So, yeah. There's a lot to be excited about. There is a lot. There's a potentially massive improvements to the modding scene coming along down the pipeline. And when people say, oh, the engine's out of date, they don't really know what they're talking about. Because it's making these changes that keeps the engine up to date. And I don't know if you've noticed, but you don't see many Unity or Unreal engines doing the kind of thing you can do in Bethesda's games. Because they're not capable of it without somebody hand placing things. Bethesda make these pre-made items you can interact with rules that you're allowed to use it for. And then they just place them items in the world automatically. You don't get that with the Unreal Engine. I mean, you could if you worked hard on it, but it would be a lot of work. So, yeah, Bethesda's engine is the best engine for this kind of games if you want to interact with world items. There isn't another engine that does as good a job of that as Bethesda's engine does. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully this gives you something to think about, right? But this is why I'm excited about about what's said in the Will Shen interview, because there's a lot of potential here. I mean, if they've already started down that road, how far down that road have they actually gone? This is the questions I keep asking. And quite frankly, you know, it's going to be fun finding out.